So they've...
Some people
Sorry?
don't know what CGL is.
CGL is Coastal GasLink, so that's sort of who's in charge of the project. And yeah, so they've been bulldozing trap lines, clear cutting right-of-ways, blasting pipeline right-of-ways through mountains, setting up man camps to hold 100, 150 people, things like that. So work has been going on the territory under that interim injunction. So when on January 31st, the Supreme Court of Canada decided, Justice Margaret Church was like, okay, we're granting CGL or TransCanada the full injunction. They can continue as much work as they want without any hesitation, and these people are not allowed to interfere with the process. And so what?
That was last January?
That is January now. So this just happened on New Year's Eve.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like full, here, maybe we'll stand. So a full injunction was granted on New Year's Eve by the Supreme Court of Canada. CGL, TransCanada, anyone involved with the project now has full leeway to do whatever they want on the territory. So that means continuing the work that they're doing, it means laying the pipe, and it also means destroying Get 'em Dan Camp. It means continuing to bulldoze trap lines and medicinal areas, disrupt hunting, continue blasting through mountains, continue clear cutting, and possibly also taking down the new cabins on Innistoten territory, as well as possibly dismantling the healing cabinet, as well as possibly pursuing Innistoten for financial costs of their legal challenge. So that decision on, that was just this year, December 31st, 2019, sorry, one day short of this year. That's what the Supreme Court of Canada gave permission to CGL to do. Obviously, the Chiefs were hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. So shortly after that, they all gathered on the territory and at meetings in towns, and they decided that this was basically their last opportunity to protect their territory. And it really is. That sort of all levels of government have failed them, all court systems have been pursued and failed, and it was up to them. So they all agreed to evict CGL workers from the territory, and later that week they all drove up to the territory. They laid blankets at 37, issued a no trespass order to any CGL contractors in the back. So workers were working beyond 66 or Innistoten, and asked them to leave. So luckily CGL workers did leave, and behind them the Chiefs sort of closed the road. Trees were felled, about 100 trees were felled between kilometer 44 and 66 to prevent access by police and contractors, yeah, I think that brings us to about the end of the video-ish. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to take a drink. That was a lot.
Good work. Yeah.
Some of the things
I have a question here.
Yeah.
Do you have any information on the Guardian's report on RCMP's internal memo on use of violent force to enforce the injunction?
I mean, I wouldn't say that I have any more information necessarily than you do, other than that that information from the Guardian is true and was released via disclosure in court cases. So it is it's not made up. I know the police came back and were like, we can't confirm, we don't know what they're talking about. But that is actually untrue, and it's silly that they can't find their own documents or they're using that. But certainly the RCMP have been and still are prepared to use deadly force to allow CGL and contractors access to the territory. So that's something that we also have to be worried about moving forward, for sure. All right. Things I wanted to highlight from the video were that, I made two key things. Is Wet'suwet'en have never given up title. They've never ceded their land. That is their land. And therefore, Canada and all of its agents and industry have absolutely no jurisdiction there. So the Canadian court system shouldn't even be making a decision on this territory. And that is recognized by the Supreme Court of Canada. The RCMP have no jurisdiction on policing the territory, but they've been doing so for the last year. Yeah, important to underline, as well as the Hereditary Chiefs of all 5 clans have said no to this project. And the traditional territories are the decisions around development and extraction and caretaking, those are all made by the Hereditary Chiefs. So while the Wet'suwet'en Band Council has signed on to a project because they've received mass financial incentives and also have received a gag order speaking out against the project, the actual people who control the development of the territory and have like authority to say no are saying no. And that really should be all we need to be like, hey, what the fuck, Canada? Yep. Cool. So some of the video covered this, but and then I just covered a bunch more. Basically, after the eviction, trees were felled between kilometer 44 and 66. A new camp was started at kilometer 39 by chiefs and supporters in Haida and Gitxsan. The police obviously responded to that with more surveillance, with foot patrols, with drones, with planes flying overhead. And then they eventually also set up an exclusion zone at kilometer 27, which was just short, just before they built their own police station out there. The chiefs allowed CGL to come in and winterize their camp. And I'll note that they flew in to do that despite there being a no-fly zone for the rest of the people out there. So when you're 66 kilometers from the closest town or like medical center, sometimes your life depends on air transit, and people have contracts with helicopters. So the RCMP have decided that it's a no-fly zone out at Unistoten and around there, for whatever reason they're saying or making up. And that is literally potentially signing the death warrant of people because they cannot access in and out by road at this point. So if a medical emergency happens back there, the RCMP have been like, nope, you can't be a rescue. Other things that have been flying around, these are just key points. There's stuff happening daily, I'm sure you know. The UN has been asked to witness evictions and has already provided direction to the federal and the provincial government to apply UNDRIP.
What's under?
What's under?
UNDRIP is basically a UN document that is saying you need to respect the rights of Indigenous people in your country in a way that you need to like recognize their government structure, recognize their authority, their sovereignty, in order to like be working towards this goal of reconciliation. That's the very short of it.
Which was recently adopted by the BC government.
Right, it was recently adopted by the
Canada has signed on.
Yeah. And then a new development in the last couple of days is that there's now a new camp at kilometer 27. Gidimt'en folks were tired of being harassed getting through the checkpoint and have started a new gathering space for chiefs to have meetings, for supporters to gather. That's happening at kilometer 27 before the police line now. And that just happened like a day and a half ago.